Hey, Chris.
She said,
Thank you, Christy. I will take your advice. Thank you so much.
20 minutes.
Mhm. I'm going to work on shutting down a school.
Look.
Dr. Price, you want to put your thing on mute?
Really? Do you really want me to put it on mute?
Yes.
Oh,
All right, good afternoon.
hi, how are you?
All right.
I'm talking to my folks. We're talking about, we had our board retreat and we were talking about shutting down a school and it's like, really? I don't think I want to take that on right now.
That sounds like a good plan, Maurice. And we're right at 4 o'clock, so Robbie, I believe we can get started.
Yes, we're calling to order today at 4 o'clock. Do I have, next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine, all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, none
Aye.
opposed. All right, next item on the agenda is approved minutes from July 25th. You have the attachment, you received the attachment earlier. If you had an opportunity to read through it, do I have a motion to approve our minutes from July 25th?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Levine. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Gibney Sherman, we're down to item number 4, public comments. Do we have any public comments for today?
We do not, thank you.
All right, well, we can move on to item 5, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And I'm going to have an 8th item, Robbie, that just occurred this morning
Okay.
about a book challenge. So when I get down to 7, I will add an 8th item.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, the first is our staff personnel. It's how we traditionally keep up and inform you of our hires and people who have left us. And that's what you've got there. There's nothing unusual there, except for you'll see a new position that we created, and that was to have a program student facilitator that is housed at each one of our sites. And this is someone who has either additional hours or a whole new person to manage the oversight of program students to make sure we're getting our district sites, which means you, all the information you need about the progress of your students. And so we're just creating this and we're about to have some training, et cetera. So that's one thing that you'll see that's different than was there last month. You'll see our student enrollment, and we're going to talk about FTE in our next section. And I'm going to have Dale talk in particular about what happened during FTE and how that impacts us. But right now, at the end of September, we had 2,756 students. And you can see the breakdown that we send out every month to let you know where we are and where we stand. And so that's what you've got. You've got our progress reports, again, showing you who's attending, who's not, and who's graduating and the progress that we're making. You have our student newsletter, and I want to highlight, we're featuring, as you remember, students every other month. And these are students who are either in progress or who have completed the Foothills journey. And you could not get a more varied group of folks presented. And this is what we're about, finding kids who needed support as they're working through the high school process and helping them get to their next step. And we've got some really good examples here for you to read and know about. And both of them, these two newsletters focus in on the first two with our students. And then the second, we focus in on our program. And so that's what we've been using for the last 9 years as a way to communicate to our public what we're doing with our program and then what our students are actually doing. And we also include parts of this in our Friends of Foothills, which is electronic communication that goes out once a month to make sure that people are aware of the work we're doing at Foothills. But these are great examples, and you could not get a greater range of individuals that we serve. That's what you've got there. And graduates, at the end of every month, we step back to see what our total, and our total right now is 60 as of the end of September. And just a reminder, this number is going to be considerably smaller than we're accustomed to, because the only graduates that we are calculating are those that are enrollment students. The students that are program students are the ones that will count toward your graduation, not ours. So that number we'll just keep tabs on and see what happens. But since we opened in 2015, we've had 2,241 graduates proper from Foothills. However, we've helped thousands more graduate from their own home school over that same time period. So I'll just pause right there, see if there's any questions about students. Okay, I'll move forward to the programs. Your sixth item talks about the curriculum and data teamwork. That continues, and actually I missed a meeting on Monday night where our data teams, which are now school improvement facilitators, work through their data teams and how they're supporting their schools. Because right now today, we are still doing the data team work, and this is like year 8 of that work, where our schools are looking at test scores and analyzing and making a difference in how students are working. And the second item deals with the end of course status. We still administer mid-month like we've done in the past, but right now, none of the program students have taken an end of course test yet. So the only testing scores that we have are for enrollment students. That number will decrease as well, because we'll only be counting the scores of kids who are enrollment students. And so it's not going to be comparing apples to apples anymore, because we only will have the enrollment students. But we will continue with this analysis and breaking it down and seeing how we're scoring and where we need to make improvements. So that's what you've got. And so,
Sherry,
yes, ma'am.
can you not have access to that data and then be able to create a separate report that would show the performance of the program students versus, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know I know exactly what you mean, and how we have to get that, Norris. And as you know, we have liaisons for each of our school districts. And one of our asks as we work with our liaisons is for liaisons to share their test scores with us, so that we'll have that data to compare and study to see what we need to do to make adjustments to our curriculum. And so we will have to depend on our partner districts to share that data with us. We tried to get it directly from the state and we were unable to do that. So we will be working with your liaisons to get that data. However, there's not data available yet.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I think it's important to again show the impact that Foothills is having on this group of students.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, as we make our case for why we need, you know, Foothills.
Thank you, Norris. And you know what? We could not agree with you more. And so we are absolutely ripping apart everything that's happening here and unpacking every piece of data that we've got to make sure we're understanding clearly the impact we're having or not, and any corrections that we need to make. And so, Dale, I believe we have our second training with our liaisons November 16th. And we'll remind the liaisons at that point that we really want that data so that we can study it and communicate it, and also change practice if we need to. So thank you for saying that. Our third item is the Fan Institute Student Leadership Program. We're now Dawn in our third year of operation, and I got to sit in, not this week, but I got to sit in the week before. And we have how many students, Dawn? 18 students who are enrolled, and this is voluntary. And for those of you who are familiar with cognitive standards, you know, one of the standards is having students work cooperatively together. And so this is a good way for them to be able to work together, because our instructional model does not really allow for that. And so this is one option, and we're looking for different options, and this is one of them. And so Dawn is chairing that up again, and we have a good hearty group ready to become young leaders in this world. And so they're working. And so Dawn has provided you with a summary of that work and the topics that they're covering over the course of the year. And then we got our graduation rate, and we actually went up, which is surprising, you know, because just, you know, the nature of our audience. And so our graduation rate did go up slightly from last year. At the 4-year rate, it's now 9.45%. Last year it was 7%. So we felt good about that for our 4-year group. And then our 5-year group, this past year was 12.43%, and the year before it was 12.91%. So that one went down a little bit, but overall we are 10.4% is our graduation rate. But we will never be at the state rate. And so we will always be on the school improvement list, but we'll take this, but it's going to look even more different next year. We have changed our format of graduations, and the dates are listed there. We're going to kind of cluster them by north and south. And we have 2 graduations scheduled for December, one December 5th and one December 13th. And those dates and locations are posted. And just a reminder, we do invite legislators, and they do come to our graduations. We give them an opportunity to speak and welcome the students. And I'm sure that'll be the case this year. So those are 2 upcoming dates. And then we were surprised to learn that we received an award. We just completed another well-ready class. And just a reminder, this is where we've been working with the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission, and they come out to our sites. And we now have 100 students who have completed this program over various sites. And those 100 students have earned credentials, and more importantly, have gotten jobs and have moved on. And so the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission won an award because of this work, and they called this the Impact Award recipient. And so we were part of that, and that just happened this last week. And we gave you some information about it. And that funding, unfortunately, has dried up. And it turns out it was a $300,000 investment on those students. 200 of it came from the Northeast Georgia Development Regional Commission. They made that contribution, and then we matched it with the other 100. So we're in the process of looking for funding. We're actually using our Peach Care tax credit program to help fund the next cohort of students will go through. But 100 students have completed those credentials. And this past Thursday night, we had a session. Chris, it was over in Barrow County. It was over at the Sim site. It was unbelievable. Most students talked about what it meant for them and their families to have earned those credentials and what their future looked like. And as each student got up to speak, not one mentioned the word welding. They talked about getting to learn that they could finish something, that they could work with people that were different than themselves, and they had no idea they had a skill set. And it was just a pretty moving moment, and this is just this past Thursday night. So I'm just real proud that we've been able to partner with these companies in order for our students to be able to have this experience. So we're working with Caterpillar, Kubota, and others to see if they'll help fund another cohort to go through. So this is a proud moment to be a part of Foothills. And then we have the State School Superintendent Parent Advisory Council. We have another member that's on that, and it's a parent that actually sit on the council, and that's what we had before, and we'll have it again. So we're just real pleased that that's been able to stay on this, Rebecca Miller. And so she is going to be representing Foothills for this next year. The 8th item that I wanted to share with you, because this is the first time this has happened here. It's happened to me in other settings, but not at Foothills. We had a parent challenge 2 of our literature selections. And so we have a protocol, just like you do, for if a parent wants to challenge a book, they can. And so we have somebody who is. And so just for you to be aware, we're going through that process. And Scott Gordon is our regional director for instruction. And so he is following the protocol and will send a letter and tell the parent what they need to do. And just for you to know, we'll leave all the books in question available to students at the moment until we go through the process, and we will not pull anything from our collection, but we will give the parent the option to select something else if they wish. And so they have to run that selection by Scott, and he will make a judgment from there. But just be aware that's going on. So I'll just pause right there. Robbie, is there anything before I move forward?
No, ma'am, I don't think anyone has any questions, so we can move forward with the discussion items.
Okay, very good. I do want to point out Melanie Burton Brown is here. She's our superintendent from Franklin County. And Melanie, we are so happy to have you here. And she is attending as a non-voting member, but she is a Foothills warrior. She worked with Foothills before she became superintendent, but she has been an avid, strong supporter of our work. So Melanie, welcome to this meeting.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, we're always glad to see your smile face. Okay, Robbie, we'll move right on. And the first is our financial updates, and Bonnie will share that with you.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good deal. We have lots of financial stuff, a lot more than normal with it being the year-end financials as well as the start of Foothills regional financials. So I'm going to run through the attachments really fast. And if you have any questions, just stop and ask, or if, once you've had more time to review them, you've got questions, you can definitely reach out later as well. But the first attachment, attachment A, is our final June 30 financials as Foothills charter. We finished the year strong. We've talked about it before, but 109% of our budgeted revenues, 86% of our expenditures, because we started cutting back in the second semester when we saw what was changing and how things were looking and faring. And our fund balance is a little over 27 million. That's for the general operating and funds consolidation funds. There's still some other federal funds that will be added to that as we transfer assets and things to Foothills Regional. And the FY23 audit should be done this week. I actually got an email to approve the management representation letter today. So hopefully we'll definitely have that out to you shortly. I don't anticipate any problems or any findings with the audit. Behind the general financial statement, the budget analysis is just the standard investment report that we give, the grants listing as of June 30th, the funds consolidation spreadsheet showing you the federal funds that we consolidate with state and local and how we've done those drawdowns. And then we also at year end give the governing board a list of all of the donated funds that we received for the year. So that's attached for your review, as well as any sole source purchases that we made that were higher probably, if they weren't sole source, they would have required us to follow bidding and quotes and things, but they're defined as sole source by our purchasing policy. So we always like to let you know what those are as well. And then the final sheet for the June 30th attachment A is just our community economic impact sheet. We do this twice a year just to take a look at the salaries and benefits that we've put back in each community since we started. And it's pretty phenomenal when you look at that. So that's just the dollars that we put back into the communities that we're serving. So any questions about attachment A and finishing up Foothills Charter and moving on to Foothills Regional?
No questions.
Okay.
Bonnie, if I could interrupt for a second.
Sure.
When you move from being one entity to the next, it's like you're starting all over.
That is correct.
It's not only the new signage, that's the easy part, but we have to go back to all of our banking friends and all of our vendors and reestablish ourselves as a new entity. And so thank you to Bonnie and her team, because that's not casual. Because we have to start, it's like 51st states, you start all over again, explaining yourself, who you are, you're for real, we really do have money. And it's been a long, hard process, but they've done a very good job in a very short amount of time.
Thank you. It's gone very smooth, much more smoothly than I thought it was going to when we initially realized we were going to have to do it. 11B is the same attachment as 11A, but it's for July, August, and September as Foothills Regional. You can see that the revenues are much less. We've talked about that because we've lost the SCSC supplement. And let's just focus on September, since July and August are really just cumulative on the September report. We've received 18% of our revenues, even though we've completed 25% of the school year. I just want to point out that we still are not receiving from the state our alternative ed funding for all of our enrolled students. We hope to see that at midterm, but those revenues are going to look low until we actually get that midterm adjustment. The expenditures are in good shape. They're at 18% at this point, but I also want to remind you that our July payroll was part of June 30th because it was payroll for June. So as we move forward, that percentage of increase, that percent of expenditures total to budget will increase and be more comparable to the time of the year. Right now, you can see that the fund balance is down to 26.2 million. So we've lost $1 million in our fund balance. Again, that's because of the lack of revenues coming in, and the fact that we anticipated using a portion of our fund balance throughout the whole year. So I'm not worried about that. Just want to point it out and let you know that it is happening. Behind our regular budget to actual finances is our investment summary report, grants listing. Just want to point out right now, it's, just like every school district, we're starting up the federal fund grants in the month of October, but the ESSER funds, we have completed spending all of our ESSER funds, 1, 2, and 3. We had a last little bit to spend this year in ESSER 3, and that's been taken care of. We do have some homeless money that you see out there that still needs to be spent, but we anticipate having all of that revenue, all of that spent by June 30th, the deadline, with no problem. The last thing, funds consolidation spreadsheet looks a little blank. I just mentioned that we're getting started there, and you'll start seeing the drawdowns at your next meeting. And then the last page that I wanted to point out, Sherry mentioned the Peach Education Tax Credit. We'll start adding this to our financials each time we meet. We've received $4,500 at this point. However, we have an email from them that they owe us. We've actually earned a little over the $7,500. It's a $7,620 now, I think. So we'll be getting another check at the end of the month, and we'll continue to increase that. And my understanding is this last quarter of the year is a bigger time for that money to come in, because that's when everybody's making their tax payments and thinking about taxes. So we're anticipating that number growing before we see each other again at our January meeting. Any questions about 11B? Okay. 11C is really easy. It's just a copy of our benefits guide. We normally share it each year with the governing board. Although we have a smaller eligibility pool for benefits, we do offer a full range of benefits similar to a traditional school system. And of course, we have state health for all of our full-time employees. So we're, like you, in the middle of open enrollment and trying to make sure that all of our employees get the benefits that they want and need. Any questions about that? And then 11D is, we'll actually ask you to approve this. It's transferring all of our assets from Foothills Education Charter High School to Foothills Regional High School. Both the Department of Education and the auditors have required us or asked us to have the governing board vote on that transfer. So the amount of cash and the investment value and everything that I've listed is pre-audit. And once we get the audit figures, we'll give you the fund balances that we're actually moving over and give you a more detailed report of that in January. If there aren't any other questions, that's all the financials for today.
Thank you, Bonnie. So next on the item is where are we?
B, unemployment.
Okay, that's you.
Bonnie, you want to go ahead and finish that?
Oh, sure. The unemployment report is similar to what you've seen in prior months. We are continuing to collect reimbursement for the funds that we paid out to employees when they were asked to pay back to Department of Labor. So that number continues to increase, but you can see those amounts there. We'll continue to report it. Our employees are still getting letters. I was working with one today that has a hearing later this week with the Department of Labor that they're saying that she was overpaid, and we're just trying to assist them in any way we can.
So it's a slow process. It's taking
Very
3
slow.
years, but we're getting our money back. But I still feel good that we helped our employees and just paid it forward for them so they were not impacted by that. But we're just keeping you current with that. Okay. Robbie, I'll take you to the legislative update if I could.
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay, House Bill 87, we're still in transition. Just a reminder, July 1 is when it came into play. And so since July 1, we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that we're being compliant. And I just want to give you an update of where we are with various things related to this, but it's a moving target, and but I'll tell you what's going on as of today. One deals with the bylaws for us, for Foothills. I was told just to put that to the side because they are not sending us any guidance from the DOE until after January. And so we are operating on the bylaws that we've had in the past, which really doesn't match what we've got in place today, but they just told me just to back off, just to wait until after they gave us guidance. It's such that they were not even going to require a training plan. And so our bylaws are pretty much just frozen. Our training plan is frozen. And Beverly, you asked me today if today was training. Well, we actually don't have training for this year. They just are telling me just to put it off until next year. So as you were, just continue with what you're doing. And we will make sure and do everything in our power to make sure the work that you do with your board can count toward the training that's required for Foothills. That's our goal. So those are 2 pieces, which includes the board terms. You know, you all came on thankfully and gratefully where you're here, and they will become clearer with I get guidance from the DOE, which we have not gotten. But they'll have some staggered terms where some folks will be for 1 year, some folks for 2, but we have to have at least 5 board members who are voting board members. And the other board members, like Melanie, can certainly participate in the meetings, but not vote. So I don't have any update, but that's my update. I don't have an update until I get guidance from the DOE. I'm going to talk about the other items, but I'm going to kind of slide to the side and let you know that we've been We did engage with our lobbyist again this year. His name is Toby Carr, and he's proven to be very helpful to us in so many ways. And he arranged for 2 meetings for us this summer with Representative Chris Irwin, and Senator Clinton Dixon, where we met to give them a reality check of how this was going and where we're going and the priorities for next year. And we are due to set up another meeting with these 2 individuals as we move forward into the legislative session. One thing that appears to be getting some traction is this 45-day rule. And if you remember, if a student drops out, if they're 18 or any age, they have to be dropped out for 45 days before they can become an enrollment student. And that has caused major consternation for students. And the truth is, this is not a rule just for Foothills, it's for any high school in the state of Georgia. And so my understanding, and I got to talk to Stan Jarnett and to Chris Irwin last week, is that this will come before the board and they can administratively take care of this and get this off the books. So that's not something we have to deal with. So I'm encouraged by that. It hasn't happened yet, but the word is it's going to go before the board this next week. So Dale, Bonnie, and I will show up again. We're like bad penny. We show up every month at the board meeting so they can see we're still there. And this is one of the items. A second item is that they'll bring up is our waivers. As you know, we're no longer a charter school, so we're not entitled to broad flexibility. We have to designate the specific waivers that we want waived, and that has to be approved by the State Board of Education. And the word is they're going to approve this next week. And so we will be there to be able to answer any questions. The other piece that we're still working on is the changing the age classification for program students. Students now, if they're 16 or 17, have to be considered program students. And in implementation, that has proven to be very problematic. But we're working and we are being compliant, trying to make this work. But we're hopeful that we can get that age term changed. So those are some things that are kind of working behind the scenes, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward. We are sending 3 of our site directors to the GSSA conference, P conference in November, to talk about Foothills and what services that we can deliver. And that will be happening next month. We have 3 people going. So we're working hard to continue our marketing to make sure people know what service that we can deliver to their students. And as I said this morning during our Board of Controls meeting, our goal is to provide the best service possible to every student that we serve. And we are committed to that. These external things that are happening outside of that circle, we're working hard to get them to bend in our favor. But our mission is still to serve these students and make sure that they have an opportunity to earn a high school diploma and they have a meaningful pathway toward graduation. So that's on the inside, but we still have program student invoicing. We just completed our FTE, and Bonnie's already done some prototype of invoices. And Bonnie, those will go out. Tell us again when they'll go out.
Yeah, we're hoping, our timeline called for January, but we're hoping to have them out before the Thanksgiving holidays. So we've made a lot of progress on them, and I've shared them with several CFOs in Northeast Georgia, RESA, as well as the team at Foothills. And I think we just have to validate the numbers and we'll be good to go.
And we're trying to be as clear and as transparent so there's 0 question, because I know you have to go back to your boards and have a conversation that's showing the students, the programs that they're in, how long they're with us, et cetera. And so we will have those out to you. And then Bonnie, the due date for those invoices are
March 31.
March 31. And so that should give plenty of time. And then we'll do this again with the next FTE count that happens in the spring. The next is the superintendent resolution. One thing that's and I should tell you this before I leave that. We gave you an update of our partner sites. and, where we stand with this. And Dale, as you know, Dale Simpson, I've had to classify his work. So he is focused on making this whole process work. And so he's working with the program students and the liaisons and all that's involved in order for these students to get to us. And so he's got training set up, and I'm going to have him talk about the impact of FTE and what's happened. But we did provide you a list of all of the systems where they have the MOUs and the ones that are in process. Right now, we're in conversation with Muskogee County and with Newton County. And so they have reached out to us, which is a good thing, asking for an MOU and wanting to be a part of Foothills. So we're encouraged by that. And so we're working in just making sure they have all the information they need. The other piece we're working toward is having a site in Griffin, in the Spalding Griffin School District. And so we're hoping to have that up and ready to go in January. And so those are some pieces that are working, but it's an everyday thing to make sure that we have all that's needed. And if we could solicit help from you all, and Rob, you offered to do this when you go to GSBA, is that we will send you the list of the school districts that are in our zone that we're really targeting. And if you can help us do the talk, work the room, these are the people that we are trying to get on board so they can be part of Foothills. We will make sure that's real clear, and that's what we did to our principals, our site directors that are going to the conference, because we've got to keep this talk going, to get our folks in. The superintendent resolution is that you all have to approve me as your superintendent. And this is a requirement of House Bill 87. And after this meeting, Robbie, Christy will send to you this in a DocuSign for you to sign if it's approved as an action item, that I am your superintendent. And just a reminder, my contract was to terminate at the end of this June 2024, but we extended it one more year. So now it goes through 2025. And honestly, I just extended it to get through this legislative situation. And so this will need to be signed, and then I'll send it to the DOE, and then we've met that requirement. But Christy will send it to you in a DocuSign. So that's a requirement they have. The next item is this pilot program. And again, I briefly mentioned this morning at the Board of Controls. We're going to pilot something with Walton County looking at serving students in the alternative program. And it's still in the process of figuring out what that looks like and what the parameters need to be for us to properly serve students. Because students can misbehave in a virtual environment, we have discovered. And so we need to make sure that we have the proper parameters around serving students who have the alternative school designation. And so we're in the process of defining what that looks like, and hopefully have everything in place by the spring FTE count. And if we do this successfully, we could offer it to more systems. So just know that's out there. I'll just pause right there before I go. Are there questions with that?
No, I think you did an excellent job of explaining that at the Board of Controls this morning.
Oh, thank you, Robbie. It's a tricky thing to talk about, but I feel, we have something good to offer here, and we want to make sure that we're putting it out there. It's quality work that's happening. But we're just having to think differently. But thank you, Robbie, for saying that. But I would like Dale, if you would, to talk about the FTE count, what just happened, and what the impact is, and where we go from here.
Sure thing. Leo, thank you for pulling that up. We generally don't go through this document in detail, but and we won't go through everything today, but certainly this is an important FTE cycle for us because a lot has changed. So on page 1, you see our October of 22 FTE count. And this is a document that we use just to progress monitor throughout the FTE cycle. Where are we in terms of student attendance? And so you can see last year in the FTE cycle in October, we had about 2,448. FTE enrolled students attend during the FTE window. And so Leo, if you could scroll to the next page. This year, we had 2,091 students attend during the window. But keep in mind, that is a significant decrease, but this only reflects enrollment students. And so last year, we would have had about 1,000 new enrollments by this time. This year, we're at only about 400. So you've got a couple of dynamics at play with that reduced enrollment. So 2,091, if you could go to the next page, this reflects the program students who attended during the FTE window. So out of 141 program students across Foothills, 127 or 90% of them actually attended during the window. And again, this resource provides you with a snapshot view of each Foothills site. The next set of reports that we'll go through looks at Foothills as a whole, and the state sees us as one school. So unfortunately, it's not broken out by site. But Leo, if you'll just go to the next page. These are just a few trends that we noticed when evaluating our FTE. We had a slight increase. Even though our FTE count decreased overall, we saw a slight increase in the number of gifted students, a significant increase in the number of remedial students. And that is in part because we've refined our procedures for identifying students for remedial education upon their enrollment based on their previous assessment scores and course grades. One area that we will be focusing on this year is identifying those remedial program students, figuring out how to do that without having access to their SLDS and several other critical records. So that'll be a focus area for us. We did have a decrease in the number of students participating in academic dual enrollment, but a slight increase in students participating in the career and technical focused dual enrollment. A lot of our dual enrollment comes from our youth challenge sites. And so some of that is just based on the schedule in which they offer those particular courses. Leo, if you could just go to the bullets below special education, you see that we did have a slight decrease in the number of students with IEPs from cycle to cycle, as well as ESOL. And then this is the overall data. And so you all just signed off, I'm sure, today or yesterday or sometime this week. And so you are familiar with these reports. Just summarizing this for you, on our FTE submission, we saw a decrease of 362 students. However, 141 students you will be submitting, and our other resident district partners will be submitting for the FTE submission for those particular students. So if you take the ones that we submitted, 2,157, and you add 141 program students, we will get FTE funding either directly or indirectly for about 2,298 students, which represents a net decrease of 221. And of course, just a reminder that not all of the students who are enrolled actually attend during the FTE window. And then some of them are in between dual enrollment classes and things. And so they don't actually have a schedule at this point, or maybe they just came on FTE day. So not all of the students who are enrolled on the FTE day count for FTE, unfortunately. So that's just a little bit of a disclaimer that sometimes the segments don't match up with the enrollment. So that's the analysis that we did on our FTE reporting. Bonnie and I joke sometimes, I do letters and she does numbers. So she's going to add a little bit more as far as the actual dollar amount impact of the report.
Thanks, Dale. It's a little bit early to have a really definite dollar figure of the impact, but if we just take the difference in the decrease in the number of students and use our average that we earn per student now under the new House Bill 87 legislation of the $5,400, it would be, without program invoicing, a loss of a little bit over $1.9 million. And then if you add in those 127 program students, and you just assumed that we were going to receive from the local districts the $5,400, you would still see a decrease in the revenues of about 1.2 million. So again, as you know, just like in your systems, it'll roll in over 3 years, and so we won't see it all at midterm allotment, but it is a little bit disturbing, I guess, to me financially to see such a large increase at the very first count when, you know, I think Dale, we all anticipate it being even lower in March. But
Yeah. And it will be lower because you remember had our students grandfathered in by June 30, and those grandfathered students will start breaking down. You know, some will graduate, some will drop out, but that number will decrease.
right.
So we are looking
And I'm not, just let me point out, I'm not sure that the 5,400 for program students is a good number when we take in local fair share and all of those kind of things. So again, we can bring some more definite numbers back to you when we meet again.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Dale. And then we have a policy revision. Bonnie, that's yours too. With purchasing.
Yes, not a lot of major changes there, just changes in title, changes in the name from charter to regional, and then the big change, and the reason why we're changing the policy is just changing 10,000 to 15,000. Two primary reasons. One, just the increased cost makes really the 15,000 the same as 10 when we originally wrote the policy. And then it also brings our capital outlay threshold of 15,000 in line with our purchasing policy, in line with our new SIBA, I can't say it, Christy can say it for us, SIBA policy with GASB 96 in terms of all of the software requirements that we're required to put on our balance sheet. So we're just trying to get it all aligned at $15,000.
Thank you, Bonnie. And then yesterday, Todd and I had a meeting with our Cognia support person, Cynthia Anderson. And and so we added to our report, we have the actual accreditation review and just a 3-page summary that she went over yesterday. And I have to tell you, it was a good report. It was really very good. She talked about insights and then some noteworthy practices in areas for improvement review, and everything seems spot on. And Todd, did you want to add something to this?
The only thing I'll add is that where she pointed out areas for improvement, there are already areas that we were intending on working on, and those are in the slide deck as well. And then we included the entire report, since some of you are going through your review or will be going through your review. They've changed the way the report looks, so we wanted you to see what a report looks like. And the last thing I'll add is right there, the IEQ 323 is a very solid score. As you can see, it is above, well above the expectation. They're recalibrating those scores. In the recent past, the highest was a 340. So, you know, we're not sure what the highest will be now, but Foothills is up there. And so a lot of this is thanks to your support and the work that this board did a year ago with just getting us ready with our strategic plan.
If you will scroll back, Leo, to go back right above, keep going, right there. Areas for improvement review. The 3 areas that she cited, or they hit their team, were areas that were absolutely reasonable to target. And so we talked to her about ways we were addressing those. And so that's what that bold is what we talked to her about. She said that was exactly right. You know, that was what we need to do in phase 2, was talking about how we were allowing for more collaboration with students, and that how we were working with professional development, and then looking at our school-wide improvement planning process. And one thing, Robbie, you'll appreciate, that in a leadership course that we're in Beverly, and Norris, actually, we're all in the same course. I took our course over here, and what I did is I asked our regional team to develop a mission and strategic steps towards supporting our schools in the school improvement planning process. And so by November 1, they'll get, and I've already gotten several, we are building up what we're doing at the site level by making sure that our work is supporting their work. And so, so each one of our regional directors they're in the process of developing a plan that supports each school as they're working through their plan on our two big goals, which is end of course score improvement and an increased course completion. That's what we're about. And so everyone has to talk about what they're doing to help that happen. And so we're able to knit all that together in a plan. And she said that was exactly right. So Curtis will be pleased to see that this is being played out and it met the cognitive check. So that's what's going on there. Yeah, I didn't realize all of us were in the same course. Philip, you need to come join us. There you go. Okay, we have several handbooks. I know you don't have to approve them, but they're there for your reference. The business operations, the federal programs, the resident district liaison handbook. You'll want to look at that. Of course, Dale, we have to, every time we have to get it ready, we have to go back and add something. But this is where we stand now, and Dale's done an outstanding job of pulling this together. This is not a casual, transitioning to this House Bill 87. And so what we tried to do is capture the tasks that they have to do and what we have to do. And our goal is to make it as simple as possible. So if anyone ever sees of a way that we can streamline it or make it more reasonable, that's what we want to do. And then the last handbook is your special ed handbook. And if you don't have one, you want this one. I would absolutely borrow that if I had to come up with a new special ed handbook. And that is the end of the content, Robbie, and then we just have action items.
Okay, do we want to take these one by one, go down, or do you?
I think you can do a consent agenda.
All right, and
Yeah, I think you can.
Want to make sure every board member has had an opportunity to review the action items that are presented before us. If that's the case, do anyone have any questions about the action items before we take a motion? Okay, there are no questions. So at this time, we will take the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for our consent agenda?
So moved. Norris.
Okay.
Second, Philip.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand and say yes.
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 Yeah.
All right. Any opposed? None opposed. The consent agenda has passed. Now, our next item on the agenda is to adjourn and to look at our next meeting date. Our next meeting, do I get a motion to adjourn? Or can I get
I'll make a
motion?
motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, second. Can I get a second, please?
Second, Norris.
All right, sounds great. All right, we're adjourned and our next meeting date will be, is this correct? July? No, I meant I'm sorry, January 16th at 4 p.m. teleconference. All right. Thank you, Sherry and your team, for a great presentation. Thank you, board members, for being here and your support throughout this journey. And we look forward to getting an update on January the 16th. All right.
And thank you, board, for your attention and support.
All right.